The sharp tap of high heels echoed down the marbled hallway of the United States Department of Justice. Pam Bondi walked with purpose, her expression steeled as she gripped the classified dossier tighter in her hands. The document, filled with damning evidence, had landed on her desk just 2 days ago. An anonymous whistleblower had sent it, claiming that Judge James Boasberg had been operating in the shadows, pulling strings no judge should ever be able to. Bondi, now the U.S. Attorney General under President Donald Trump, had seen many shocking cases in her career. But this was different. This wasn't just corruption, it was treason. She reached the Attorney General's private conference room where a small team of trusted aides awaited her. She took a deep breath, pushed the heavy oak doors open, and stepped inside. Close the doors. No leaks, she ordered as her deputy, Mark Ellison, swiftly locked the room. The air in the chamber grew tense as Bondi tossed the dossier onto the table. This, she said, tapping the folder, is the most explosive case we have ever had. And if it's true, Judge Boasberg isn't just corrupt, he's dangerous. The room fell silent. The name James Boasberg carried weight. He had presided over critical FISA court rulings, controlled major classified cases, and held sway over decisions that shaped America's national security. Ellison adjusted his glasses. What exactly are we looking at? Bondi opened the dossier and pulled out the first set of documents. We've got evidence of secret financial transactions. Boasberg has been receiving untraceable payments through offshore accounts. But it's not just bribery. These payments are linked to cases he's ruled on, cases involving intelligence agencies and high-profile political figures. Who's paying him? Another aide asked. Bondi leaned forward. That's the part that makes my blood run cold. The whistleblower claims Boasberg has been working with foreign operatives, possibly China, maybe even rogue elements within our own intelligence community. And worse, he has made rulings that have directly undermined national security interests. The room erupted into murmurs. Ellison pinched the bridge of his nose. This is massive. If this gets out, it will shake the entire justice system. Bondi nodded. Which is why we handle this carefully. We can't afford leaks and we can't afford mistakes. A young analyst, Sarah Dawson, hesitated before speaking. Ma'am, if Boasberg is compromised, then he has allies. People who will do anything to protect him. Bondi's jaw tightened. I know. That's why we need a plan. We gather more evidence, we get airtight proof, and then we bring him down. But what none of them knew was that Boasberg was already aware that they were onto him. And he was preparing his next move. Pam Bondi wasn't one to hesitate. She knew the weight of her discovery, and more importantly, she knew how dangerous a cornered man like Judge James Boasberg could be. Over the next few days, she worked in secrecy with a small, hand-picked team of investigators. The goal was clear: gather enough irrefutable evidence to bring formal charges against Boasberg before he could cover his tracks. The financial web. Mark Ellison and Sarah Dawson led the financial investigation, tracing the offshore accounts where Boasberg's payments had been funneled. The deeper they dug, the more alarming the findings became. Ma'am, Ellison said one evening, sliding a freshly printed report across Bondi's desk, we found something. Bondi skimmed the pages, her eyes widening as she reached the final paragraph. This is a money trail that leads straight to an offshore bank in the Cayman Islands, she muttered. And look at this, payments deposited right before key rulings Boasberg made on FISA cases. Sarah tapped her pen nervously against her notebook. If this is right, then someone was paying Boasberg to influence surveillance decisions. That means intelligence agencies, powerful foreign entities, or both. Bondi exhaled sharply. And that means Boasberg isn't just corrupt. He's compromised. The leaked document. Just as the investigation was gaining momentum, Bondi received an unexpected call from a blocked number. She hesitated for a second before answering. A distorted voice crackled on the other end. You're digging too deep, Pam. She straightened in her chair. Who is this? Someone who knows what happens to people who don't back off. Walk away from Boasberg, or you won't like what comes next. The line went dead. Bondi slammed the phone down and turned to Sarah, who had overheard the call. Ma'am, I think we have a leak, Sarah said cautiously. Someone on our team is feeding information back to Boasberg's allies. Bondi clenched her fists. Then it's time to set a trap. Laying the bait. Later that night, Bondi and Ellison devised a plan. They would release false information within their own investigative team, details about a fake informant who was supposedly ready to testify against Boasberg. We'll see who takes the bait, Bondi said. Within 48 hours, their answer came. The fake informant's name, which had never been officially documented, somehow made its way to a high-ranking intelligence official known to be in Boasberg's inner circle. Sarah looked at Bondi in shock. That confirms it. Boasberg has someone inside the DOJ. Bondi's lips curled into a determined smirk. Good. Now we know who we're really dealing with. But Boasberg was already preparing his own counterattack. And what happened next would shake Washington to its core. The halls of the Justice Department felt heavier, as if the walls themselves knew that a storm was coming. Pam Bondi sat in her private office, her fingers drumming against the desk. She knew she had set the perfect trap. Boasberg had someone inside the DOJ. But now she had to act before he could strike first. The sudden raid. That night, just as Bondi was reviewing new evidence, her phone buzzed. Mark Ellison's name flashed on the screen. Pam, he said, his voice urgent. Something's happening. The FBI just raided our evidence room. Bondi shot up from her chair. What? Who authorized that? It came from Boasberg's court. He signed a last-minute order claiming we were illegally conducting an unauthorized investigation against a sitting judge. Bondi clenched her teeth. He's trying to erase the evidence. She grabbed her coat and rushed out, her mind racing. If Boasberg had the power to seize evidence before charges were even filed, then he had deeper connections than she thought. Boasberg's public move. The next morning, news outlets exploded with breaking stories. Attorney General Pam Bondi accused of overreach in unprecedented investigation. DOJ at war. Judge Boasberg says political witch hunt targeting the judiciary. Bondi turned off the television in frustration. The media was playing right into Boasberg's hands. He's framing himself as the victim, Sarah Dawson said, shaking her head. Ellison paced the room. This is a warning shot. He's trying to turn public opinion against us before we can bring formal charges. Bondi folded her arms. Then we need to move faster. If he wants a war, we'll give him one. The undeniable proof. Sarah suddenly perked up. Wait. The FBI raided the official evidence room, but we still have the off-site copies, right? Bondi's eyes widened. Yes. We backed up everything. Ellison smirked. Then we still have the upper hand. Within hours, Bondi's team reassembled the case, pulling together the financial trails, the whistleblower's documents, and a crucial new piece of evidence, intercepted messages between Boasberg and a foreign intelligence contact. Bondi's eyes scanned the messages. The final text made her stomach drop. If they get too close, remove them. She exhaled sharply. This isn't just corruption. Boasberg is orchestrating something far worse. And now we have proof. But Boasberg wasn't done fighting back. That night, Bondi's worst fears became reality. Pam Bondi had seen corruption before, but this was different. This wasn't just about money, influence, or power. This was a direct attack on America's justice system. And now it was personal. She sat in her dimly lit office. The intercepted messages spread out before her. If they get too close, remove them. The words sent a chill down her spine. Was Boasberg really desperate enough to eliminate those who stood in his way? Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. Mark Ellison entered, his expression grave. You need to leave. Now. Bondi frowned. What are you talking about? Ellison held up his phone. We intercepted new chatter. A contract has been put out on someone high-ranking in the DOJ. We think it's you. Bondi's breath hitched. You're saying Boasberg hired a hitman? We don't know if it's directly him or someone protecting him, Sarah Dawson added. But we do know someone doesn't want you alive. The attack. Bondi didn't hesitate. She grabbed her coat, and Ellison escorted her to an armored vehicle waiting outside. As soon as they pulled out of the DOJ parking garage, Bondi felt the weight of the situation. They were barely a mile down the road when the first car appeared in the rearview mirror. Blacked out windows, no plates. Ellison muttered a curse. We've got a tail. Before Bondi could respond, the vehicle behind them accelerated. Then bang! Gunfire erupted. Bullets shattered the back window as the driver swerved. Bondi ducked, adrenaline surging through her veins. Get us out of here, she shouted. The driver slammed on the gas, weaving through traffic as the attackers gave chase. Another car appeared up ahead, blocking their path. This is an ambush, Ellison growled. Bondi reached for her phone. Get me a direct line to the Secret Service. Before she could dial, their car suddenly swerved. Tires screeched, metal crunched, and Bondi's world spun as their SUV flipped onto its side, skidding across the pavement. Everything went black. A deadly message. When Bondi came to, she was lying in a hospital bed. Her head ached, and her vision was blurry. Sarah Dawson was at her bedside. "You're lucky to be alive," Sarah said softly. Bondi sat up. "Ellison? He's fine. Just a few broken ribs." Bondi exhaled in relief before her eyes hardened. "Boasberg did this." Sarah hesitated before handing her a small envelope. "This was left at the crash site." Bondi took it and carefully opened the letter. The message inside was chilling. "This was your first warning. Drop the case or next time you won't be so lucky." Bondi clenched her fists. "If they thought this would scare me, they have no idea who they're dealing with." Boasberg had just made a fatal mistake. He tried to silence her. Now she was going to take him down, no matter the cost. Pam Bondi sat upright in her hospital bed, gripping the chilling note left at the crash site. "This was your first warning. Drop the case or next time you won't be so lucky." Instead of fear, rage burned inside her. Judge James Boasberg had gone from secret corruption to outright attempted murder. If she had been uncertain before, she was now more determined than ever. He had to be stopped. The president's directive. As soon as she was discharged, Bondi headed straight for the White House. The evidence against Boasberg was airtight, but she needed the full backing of President Trump before making her move. Inside the Oval Office, Trump listened intently as Bondi laid out the case. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Then he spoke. "Pam, I hired you because you don't back down. This is one of the biggest scandals in our history. The American people deserve to know the truth." He stood and adjusted his tie. "You have my full support. Do what you need to do." That was all she needed to hear. The sting operation. Bondi knew Boasberg would never let himself be taken down by simple evidence. He was too well connected, too protected. She needed to catch him in the act. That's when Ellison came up with a daring idea. "What if we get him to confirm his crimes on tape?" Bondi raised an eyebrow. "You think he's stupid enough to do that?" Ellison smirked. "If we play our cards right, yes." A plan was set in motion. Bondi arranged a secret meeting with a known intermediary who worked for Boasberg. The DOJ had flipped him in exchange for immunity. The meeting took place in a private lounge in Washington, D.C. Bondi wore a concealed wire, and agents were stationed nearby. Boasberg's intermediary arrived first. A tall, bald man with sharp eyes and a quiet, menacing presence. He leaned in close. "You should have taken the warning, Pam." Bondi smiled. "You mean the bullets? The car crash? The note?" "Oh, I got the message loud and clear." The man smirked. "Then why are you here?" Bondi's tone turned deadly serious. "Because I want out." The man hesitated. "Out? I've seen how this game works. No matter what evidence I find, the system protects itself. I'm done fighting. I want in." The man studied her. "You're asking to switch sides?" Bondi leaned closer. "I know things. Valuable things. I can be useful to Boasberg." The man tapped his fingers against the table. "If I take this message to him, I need to know you're serious." Bondi gave a sly smile. "I have proof that could destroy Boasberg. If I was lying, why would I risk giving that up?" The man nodded slowly. "I'll arrange a meeting." The final blow. 3 days later, Bondi sat in a dimly lit hotel suite, waiting. The room was wired with hidden cameras and FBI agents were stationed nearby. Then the door opened. Judge James Boasberg walked in, his usual judicial composure replaced with a look of cold calculation. He sat across from her. "So," he said, "you finally see the way the world really works." Bondi shrugged. "I see a lot of things, like how a federal judge can be bought, how he can take money to influence rulings, how he can work with foreign operatives." Boasberg smirked. "And yet, here you are, trying to cut a deal instead of stopping me." Bondi leaned in. "Because I know the system is rigged. The only way to survive is to play the game." Boasberg relaxed slightly. "Then tell me, Attorney General, what do you want in exchange for your silence?" Bondi kept her expression neutral. "A seat at the table. Power." Boasberg chuckled. "You're a quick learner." And that's when Bondi struck. She reached into her bag and tossed a folder onto the table. "This is just a small piece of what I have. If anything happens to me, the full files go public." Boasberg picked up the folder and flipped through it. His smirk faded. Bondi leaned back, crossing her arms. "Oh, and by the way, you're on camera." Boasberg's head snapped up. That's when the FBI burst into the room. "James Boasberg, you are under arrest for bribery, conspiracy, And treason, an agent announced. Boasberg's face turned pale. You set me up. Bondi smirked. Oh, Judge, the system may be corrupt, but today, justice wins. The aftermath. The arrest of James Boasberg sent shockwaves through Washington. News outlets exploded with headlines. Federal judge arrested in unprecedented DOJ sting operation. Pam Bondi uncovers deep state corruption at highest levels. Boasberg's allies tried to cover for him, but the evidence was overwhelming. In a desperate move, Boasberg attempted to make a deal, naming other powerful figures involved in his schemes. The dominoes began to fall. Within weeks, multiple officials were arrested, exposing one of the biggest corruption rings in modern U.S. history. And Pam Bondi? She stood before the American people, looked into the cameras, and made one thing clear: no one is above the law.